you?
I will be here,
And then
I will be hearing out of that monitor.
yourself.
And then I'll probably roam through. I like to.
Because you start out
I
there.
like to start in the crowd.
So where will you start?
I'll just walk through and see if I recognize anybody or pick
What
a
happens
kid.
if you do?
I just start there, and,
Do you have always a set opening number?
No, it's always different, and this time we're doing a song from the new CD. So I'm coming on up, okay.
The song of yours, or is the
No,
50s
it's
cover?
it's a cover. It's called "Should I Ever Love Again."
Well, I got tears in my eyes.
Duffy Bishop's been performing almost her entire life. Seattle music audiences probably know her best as the front woman for blues bands, especially Duffy Bishop and the Rhythm Dogs. But Duffy Bishop has also performed in theater, including the long-running Teatro Zinzanni. She's a costume designer. She's even a visual artist. Duffy Bishop no longer calls Seattle home, but Portland is just a short drive away, and she's here with me now on the grounds of the Seattle Center as it gets ready for Bumbershoot.
When you squeeze me and hold me tight. Well,
Does it ever make you nervous to look out?
Oh, it
and
always
see?
makes me nervous.
Really?
I get nervous every time I perform.
And how many years have you been doing
Since I was
3.
that old. And I always say, why'd I pick a profession that makes me physically ill? But, it's
Wow.
once you get out there, then it's fine. But
So-
I get nervous every time.
I'm down, 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 yeah.
Duffy, thanks for coming out on such a beautiful day. To
thank you
talk
for
with
having
me.
me.
And welcome home.
Thank
I know, we
you.
still think of you as being from Seattle,
Well, I still sort of feel that way too,
deep in your heart.
deep in my heart.
I have to ask you, I've seen you play, but I just read that you had been a performer since tothood. Did you study music, or is this just something you always did?
Well, I started annoying my parents at a very young age. I remember there was Stupid Cupid by Connie Stevens. Do you remember that song?
Well, I remember, yes.
I used to dress up and make my parents watch me in the living room, and I got started in grade school performing, and it kind of bit me. And from 6th grade on, I started performing in public.
Was your family musical?
Not really, although they loved music. My mom listened to a lot of music, and she's the one I always credit with teaching me to sing harmonies, because she'd always sing the harmony parts to whatever was on the radio.
So she could sing.
Yeah, she didn't think so, but she had a really pretty voice.
Did you study music formally?
Not formally. I was an art and drama major in college, and of course, all three of those things, music, art, drama, my parents said, well, you're never going to get a real job. But I worked with bands all through college.
You first performed with a band when you were 16 or 17, something like that.
In high school, yeah.
Here we're hearing all the stuff that goes with having a band set up. But was it a blues band in high school?
It was kind of a country rock blues thing. Did Buffalo Springfield and Crosby, Stills and Nash sort of thing. And then when I got into college, my first band was a horn band called Coda.
What's a horn band?
A 11-piece band with a whole lineup like trombone, sax, trumpet.
So what were you singing at that point? Swing?
No, it was more Blood, Sweat and Tears, Chicago.
Oh, like that bands of the time.
That big Tower of Power, Janus sort of stuff, all that stuff that had horns at the time.
Am I wrong to think of you as a blues singer?
No, I love the
I
blues.
think of you as a blues singer.
And I actually started out with guitar, folk guitar and blues, listening to Lead Belly and Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith.
Well, I got what it takes to keep all you men told.
When I think of blues women, and I guess I think more of blues women than blues men. I know there's a lot of fine blues men, but
Tons of them.
yeah, tons of them. But the blues women just really stand out. And I also have this idea in my ears, and probably the viewers do too, of what a blues voice sounds like. And so I'm wondering if you could tell me what you think makes a good blues voice.
Never have to tell you, 'cause you know just what to do.
Ooh, emotion. Telling a story with that emotion. And I think that blues voices tend to have more dirt in them.
First comes the milk, then comes the cream. Take sweet butter to make your mama scream.
I remember going to my voice lessons and reading a book about opera, and it said, must have pure, no dirt in the voice. And then you flip and it says, the blues singers, they have dirt. Dirt in their voice.
Sing those down in dirty
The
songs.
growls and the breaks. Anything that is considered not a pure sound.
So is that something they teach you? A voice coach teaches you, or you just have to have it?
No, I don't think voice coaches teach that. They teach you to try to get that out of your voice.
I always thought it had to do with like smoking lots of cigarettes and drinking lots of whiskey.
Nah. Although that can be helpful, I suppose.
I don't know why you do it. It'll do you no good. And you're as mean as a snake when you got booze in your blood.
But it's got to come.
Working in smoke-filled rooms, that's like smoking cigarettes.
Oh, yeah. Getting the secondhand smoke.
Yeah.
Well,
Years and years of it.
huh. So is that something that comes like later in the evening? Like you can't be bluesy at 11 o'clock in the morning, which is where we're sitting here?
I think that depends on a good voice teacher. When I was younger, we'd work so much more. You'd work 5 nights a week, doing 3 sets a night. That's really hard on your voice
I
to
bet.
sing that way all the time. And I've got a great vocal coach now that just makes sure that I'm breathing right, and
So you still study?
you got to keep studying. I think anything that you do, you've got to keep studying so that you can get better at what you do and hold on to what you do,
So you were talking about Lead Belly and Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith. When you came into blues singing, if I can call it that, were you covering that kind of music? What were you singing?
I was singing those kinds of songs, but not fully understanding yet what it was because I was just a young kid. And I grew up in Woodland, California, which is, you're more likely to hear country western than any blues. Fortunately, I could tune into late night, like Wolfman Jack, and hear stuff there. I mean, I remember the first time I heard James Brown. Whoa, because he was just like, you get those goosebumps and you go, that's what I want to do,
You wanted to sound like James Brown?
Oh, I wanted to sound like James Brown. I wanted to sound like Little Richard. I wanted to sound like...
Well, so do you practice to have that voice thing?
I think when you're really younger, you try emulating that. There was a stage where I went through trying to sing like Bob Dylan all the time.
Huh.
It really upset my mom. She's going, honey, you have such a pretty voice. Why do you have to do that? And she was the only one that I could make listen to those records because my friends were listening to the Beach Boys, and I go, listen to this great guy, Bob Dylan,
Oh, they're allowed to be free.
Even though design, drama, and music were things that you maybe weren't going to make a living on, your parents didn't say, honey, study accounting?
They said it, but there was...
Did they know that you weren't going to?
They knew I wasn't going to. And now they are thrilled for me that I've spent all these years with a career in music, and they love coming to see me in the circus, because I always wanted to be in the circus.
We talk about that
I
in a
know.
minute. I want to come back. You grew up in Woodland, California, but you came to Seattle.
1979.
Yeah, I was going to say about 25 years ago, almost 25.
Yeah.
What brought you up to this city?
Well, I was living in LA at the time and was in a marriage that was, I thought if we moved, we could get away from the bad events of the time. But what it did was bring me to a beautiful place in my life. When I moved to Seattle, I felt like for the first time ever I was home. It was just remarkable. I remember the first day walking through a market in Ballard and having people of all ages talk to me instead of in LA where people were afraid of one another. Or at that time they were afraid of one
So you'd gone to LA because that was the place to go to make it.
Well, yeah.
Or did-
My ex was in a band that had been signed by CBS, and I went down there and worked at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Pasadena as a costume designer. Sang some backups on Bill Cosby comedy album,
Really?
Disco Bill.
You sang backups?
Yeah.
What would that be like?
It was
Can
really.
you sing?
I remember we sang. One of the things we sang was "What You Think About Licking My Chicken." That was the harmony.
Do you remember how it went?
What you think about licking my chicken? What you think about licking my chicken? And
Was that very fulfilling artistically?
no, but it was interesting watching Bill Cosby come in and on the spot do stuff because he didn't have anything scripted. He just came in and sat down and started doing his comedy thing. He was pretty funny.
So that's pretty much what artists do in LA. They are backing up stars, right?
Yeah, I think so. You know, and I was in LA long enough.
Almost, I know that it wasn't true, but almost all the time in those early 80s or mid 80s, I remember Duffy Bishop and the Rhythm Dogs.
Yeah.
Now, when did that band form?
That band formed in the early 80s.
Oh, so
first,
almost...
the first band I was with was a little band called SCCtv, which was kind of an alternative punk new wave band. Then I did some theater. Then I hooked up with Cool Ray and the Shades, where I met my husband, Chris Carlson. And from there, we formed the Rhythm Dogs.
That I have known. Well, you're the only one to set the groove.
What a great time to be playing music in Seattle. It was so much fun.
Now, I don't think of that as a straight blues band, if there is such a thing.
wasn't.
It was like a dancing band.
It was really eclectic. I mean, we did some blues and we did some rhythm and blues and we did a little bit of jazz, but we've always done a whole bunch of kind of comic things in between, and we've never been on the purist list. You know, there's always somebody who's going to say, well, they're not a blues band, well, they're not an R&B band, but I always figure that good music transcends all that.
Were you doing theater at the same time that you were doing the Rhythm Dogs?
You could never do both, you know, so I did a lot of theater, and then when the Rhythm Dogs ended, I did the Janis play, and
You were Janis Joplin.
yeah.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Mama now. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right.
A show not without controversy.
That's right.
No, were you cast because of your vocal resemblance to Janis Joplin?
I
or-
think so. Susan Ross, who wrote the stage play, had been toying with the idea of writing it, and she was talking to her friends, and people said, well, you ought to hear Duffy because she's had some theater background, and I think she could, you know, cover that. And we met, and we really enjoyed one another, and it was a fun project.
No, Janis had dirt in her voice.
Janis had dirt in her voice, and she got it, a lot of it from the whiskey and the cigarettes.
You're looking good.
I see. So that's where I got my idea
Yeah.
from that I was talking about a bit earlier. Did you have to take some of the pretty out of your voice to sing like Janis?
Well, I fortunately always had some dirt already and growl in my voice. But one thing they did have me do during the process was smoke. And I had never smoked.
Oh.
And so I started smoking through the rehearsal process
Ooh.
and through the show. And when it was over, I was a full-fledged smoker. And I just quit again for like the 6th or 8th time a
man.
couple weeks ago. So this time I quit for good.
Look like everybody in the holy mother. Stand on me.
That show was Janis Joplin's heirs that didn't want the show to happen?
It was Janis Joplin's sister, Laura. And unknowingly, I think Sam Andrew probably, just by talking to Laura, Sam Andrew was working here in a bank at the time, and Sam Andrew was one of the original guitar players for Big Brother and the Holding Company. And when we found out he lived here, we called him to have him consult.
Sure.
And he's just a great guy. But I think he mentioned to Laura that we were doing this play, and she was writing a book, and she wanted to get her own play going. So it was a thing where she claimed to have all rights to Janice's persona. And it was a precedent-setting case. And we won the case, but by that time it was moot because we'd done our 12-week run. And
You were done. But you toured with Big Brother and the Holding Company.
a few years later, it was like I think 4 or 5 years ago, I got to go to Japan with them. And it was tremendous fun.
No, this was not your only dramatic venture, because if I'm right, the Empty Space did the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and were you not in that?
I got to be Frankenfurter. I got to take over for G. Valmont Thomas. He went
Well,
to,
there's an interesting casting switch.
I know. He went to play Othello at the bathhouse.
And you became
And I got to
Frankenfurter.
be Frankenfurter for, I think it was 2 weeks or something. And it was so much fun.
Did you wear the fishnets? And
I wore the fishnets,
bustier?
and it was right after I was recovering from cancer and my mastectomy, so I had, my hair had grown back in, and I had it leopard. It was all short, and I'd done it myself leopard, and we put my mic pack on the side that had not been reconstructed yet, so it was like, I was
Wow.
sort of a Frankenfurter.
So always had that foot in theater, so
Yeah,
to speak.
oh yeah, and that was great.
Now, the movie Georgia, I understand that you were you in that or a consultant for that?
I have, if you look at it, you can see my face and our bass player in the concert footage. We're looking at Georgia kind of like going, as she's singing, you know. But her mom, Jennifer Jason Leigh's mom, Barbara Turner, wrote that script.
Mm-hmm.
And through a friend, Kathy Sander, who works at the film office, she hooked us up. She said, well, you know, Barbara's looking for women with stories. So I got together a bunch of the women locally, Kathy Hart and Nora Michaels and Lily Wild, and we just sat and gabbed with her and told her our stories. So our stories are all interlaced in that movie.
Well, so I understand there's a scene where she's driving in a convertible painting her fingernails. That's you?
That's mine. I used to paint my nails on the way to school. I'd be driving 80 miles an hour and
You were
painting,
driving and painting? You
painting my
Oh.
fingernails. I was young. I was stupid, you know.
How do you look
You
at
kind
both?
of, you know, steer and paint.
And a bathtub. There's a bathtub
Oh,
scene.
yes, that's my past. I hope Mom and Dad aren't listening. I was working at a club. I'd had the flu, and I took a bunch of NyQuil. And then the bikers bought me a bottle of Southern Comfort, and the yuppies bought me a bottle of Scotch, and I drank them all.
Ouch.
And I was out, and they carried me. There's my friend in the one scene where the gal says, "Don't throw up in my car." That's my girlfriend. I remember her saying that to me. But yeah, they put me in the tub, and then somebody had to jump in and pull me in. So.
See, this is what I think of as the stories of blues musicians.
Well,
is that past?
Yeah,
young,
I was
young.
like 19.
Well, so you mentioned your husband, Chris Carlson.
Yeah.
Does he write all the music now for the Duffy Bishop Band?
We write together. He writes, I think, some of our best songs. We both write lyrics and some music. The new CD that we have coming out is really different for us because I'm doing all 50 songs that I really like, except
Really?
for one that we wrote. So it's kind of the reverse of our other CDs.
Now it's called Ooh Wee.
Ooh wee!
Sure is fun.
Okay, you do it better than that. And this is the last album recorded with your bass player.
With Phil Haxton, yes. We were fortunate enough to record with him in January of 2003, and he just passed away on August 1st, 2003.
Was he an Oregon musician or a Seattle musician?
He was Colfax born. So he grew up in
Washingtonian.
Colfax, Washington, in sweet little town, and we met him in Oregon. But he lived in Vancouver, right over the line.
You and Chris moved down to Oregon in 96, 97?
We've been there 9 years coming up
Oh,
in
wow.
October.
I put a spell on you because you're mine, baby. I said you're mine, darling. You're mine. Wow.
What took you from here down south?
We played down in Portland a lot and had some friends down there, and we're thinking of getting out of the more crowded environment. I mean, Seattle's gotten so much bigger.
So you wanted a smaller town,
Smaller towns.
smaller city. It's not
Smaller
really a
city.
town.
Yeah.
Portland. And Portland has a big music scene.
It's a great jazz, rhythm and blues scene.
Is this up here more of a rock scene, do you think?
Well, I think it got known that way as soon as grunge came in. You know, grunge is so incredible, but this was kind of like a birthplace of grunge. And when any big sort of scene takes over, you know, other things kind of get pushed out of the way.
Did it make harder for you to get bookings?
We still worked, but it got harder to be taken seriously or get any notice, you know, to get any further.
So when you come back to this town, I mean, whether you're playing a blues stage or not, does it must feel somewhat familiar, even though it's not your home
yeah,
anymore.
and there's places we always try to go, you know. Hattie's Hat in Ballard is always fun to go to for a meal.
Do you guys play much up here outside of the festival scene?
Not too much. We come up once in a while and play the Tractor. There's a new club opening up. I can't even think of the name of it, but we're getting excited about that one because Ed Beeson is running it.
Oh.
That should be tremendous.
But you have been up here back and forth because you were part of Teatro Zinzani.
Yeah.
And so how did that connection get made? You did both the Seattle and San Francisco
Right.
shows, right?
Right. And they called me in 99. They opened in 98, and Ann Wilson was leaving the show to go on tour.
And she had opened it.
Right. And they were auditioning people, and they called me. And I remember Chris and I came up and went to Norm Durkee's apartment, and it was Norm Langell, Norm Durkee, and Renee Duff staring at us while we played on the acoustic guitar. I was so nervous.
Because you mentioned a bit earlier being in the circus, and this was the circus you were talking about.
Oh, it's so fun.
So for folks who haven't seen it, it's not exactly Ringling Brothers.
No. It's under a 1920s Spiegel tent, and there's a guy in Belgium who their family has owned these tents forever. And it's a 3-hour show, a 5-course dinner, and there are magicians and tap dancers and contortionists and aerialists and opera singers and clowns from all over the world.
You're just singing, you're not hanging from a trapeze.
No, I would if I could.
Really?
But I don't have the physical strength to hang from a trapeze.
So you're the blues act.
I'm the blues person, but I do, you know, I try to do a little clowning, you know.
So does that kind of blend those two worlds, that theater
It's
Duffy and the music Duffy?
It's a wonderful way to blend it, and such a great group of people to work with. I mean, you never know what the show's going to be. It changes all the time, and the cast is always changing. So,
Well, so Norm Durkee is the music director up
Yes.
in Seattle. I don't know about the San Francisco
well,
show.
he goes down to San Francisco when they have a changeover, and they have a changeover about every 4 months to change the show in both places.
So if you sign on, you do a 4-month gig. And
Yeah, some people go longer.
Well,
so.
how does that work out with your band?
Well, that's the first time I did the show. I did it for 8 months, and that was a long time. And so I didn't do it again. I said, okay, if you need me for like a pitch hitter, I'll come in, because it was too long to be away from my husband and to be away from the band. So now, if I can do this show for 4 months at a time and come back and do the band stuff, and now Chris is playing in the band.
Well, that makes it easier.
Oh, it's great. And
The Teatro band.
Yeah, and he loves it. And
So is it true that Sharon Stone saw you in San Francisco?
she did. She kissed me.
Well, I heard she cast you in a movie.
See how rumors go.
That's not true?
She talked to me afterwards about possibly singing on a soundtrack, possibly for a movie that she's possibly going to
Okay.
do.
All right.
So,
We'll
but
just
it was one of those incredible moments. She stood up and gave me a standing ovation, and there's a part where Elvez says, "Now's the time to kiss that special someone, you know, that mother, father, tax accountant." And Sharon Stone jumped up and gave me a hug and a kiss. So that forever will be a warm, fuzzy moment in my life. My sister-in-law was there to see it, and it was just, she was so excited from Boston. So,
What haven't you done that's still to come?
oh gosh, I don't know. I hope that I get to work till I'm 80 years old. I hope I always get to entertain, since there's no possible retirement plan for me.
For musicians. Well, more and more dirt, right?
That more, well, I don't know. Actually, my voice is getting clearer as I get older. You buying that?
Well, we look forward to hearing you here at Bumbershoot in that new bar that you don't know the
That's
name of.
right. I know I'm so bad. I should know that. But
And the new disc.
thank you so much.
Thanks for
Marcy.
talking to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to see you back in Seattle.
Each day, alright. Each day, oh, each day, you, I love you, baby. I gotta have him always here. I want him. I never want him to leave my side. Each day, alright. Each day. Thank you.